Hotel manager froze. When the black maid revealed she spoke fluent Chinese. The lobby of the five-star hotel glittered with polished marble floors and golden chandeliers. Guests moved about in tailored suits and sparkling gowns, their laughter blending with the faint notes of the piano drifting from the corner. It was a place built on luxury, appearances, and silent judgments. Behind the front desk, the manager stood tall, his smile professional but sharp, his eyes scanning every detail, not for perfection, but for flaws. To him, certain people belonged in this world of refinement while others did not. He believed he knew exactly where everyone stood. That belief was about to be shattered. When the millionaire guest walked in, a man of immense wealth and global influence, the manager straightened, nerves hidden behind his polished demeanor. The guest greeted him politely, but when the man's voice shifted suddenly into fluent Mandarin, panic flickered across the manager's face. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't something he could handle. And he knew the maid, quietly standing nearby, certainly couldn't. At least that's what he assumed. The maid had been invisible to him for so long. Just another uniform blending into the background, another pair of hands polishing silver trays and sweeping corridors. He never noticed her eyes, sharp with intelligence. He never noticed the books she read on her short breaks, or the quiet determination in the way she carried herself. To him, she was just the help. But in that instant, as Mandarin words filled the air, something extraordinary was about to happen. Words that the manager couldn't understand, words he thought no one in this hotel could answer, were about to be met with a response that would flip the entire room upside down. Because the maid, the woman he barely acknowledged, carried within her a secret that no one in this gilded lobby could have guessed. And when her voice finally cut through the heavy silence, every head turned, every assumption shattered, every prejudice laid bare. The question wasn't just how she learned to speak Mandarin so flawlessly. The real question was, what would this moment reveal about those who had doubted her all along? This was not just a slip in etiquette. This was the beginning of a reckoning. Before the chandelier light and polished marble floors of the hotel lobby came to define her daily routine, Alicia had lived a life that seemed invisible to the very people she now served. Born in a small neighborhood where opportunities rarely knocked, she had grown up watching her mother scrub floors in strangers' homes. Her mother often told her, "Work hard, keep your head down, and maybe, just maybe, life will treat you fairly." Alicia listened, but she also dreamed. In school, she excelled in languages, fascinated by the way words carried culture, identity, and power. Spanish, French, even a bit of Japanese. She absorbed them quickly. But it was Mandarin that captured her heart. The discipline of the characters, the rhythm of the tones, the history etched into every phrase. It all spoke to her in ways English never could. While her peers played outside, Alicia spent hours on borrowed library computers, watching Chinese dramas, pausing scenes to scribble down vocabulary, mimicking actors until the sounds rolled off her tongue. But dreams don't pay bills. By the time she graduated, family struggles pulled her away from opportunities. Her father's health declined, medical bills piled up, and her younger brother needed school fees covered. The world didn't wait for her passions. The hotel job came not as a dream, but as survival. At first, she thought working at the Grand Meridian Hotel might still offer a chance to climb higher. Guests from all over the world walked through its revolving doors. Politicians, celebrities, billionaires. She imagined that if she worked hard, maybe someone would notice. Maybe her diligence would open a door. But reality was colder. Staff were divided into visible and invisible. Managers and receptionists stood at the front lines, their crisp suits and perfect smiles representing class. Maids and janitors, on the other hand, melted into the background. Guests barely looked at them. Managers spoke to them in clipped tones, often without eye contact. Alicia quickly realized that in this glittering palace, her uniform marked her as invisible. Still, she carried her secret, her love for Mandarin. On her bus rides home, she listened to podcasts. During short breaks, while others scrolled through their phones, she pulled out an old, dog-eared Mandarin textbook, its cover nearly falling apart. No one noticed. No one cared. And she preferred it that way. Until one afternoon changed everything. That day, the hotel buzzed with whispers. A foreign dignitary, wealthy, powerful, and known for his sharp intellect, was arriving. Managers scrambled, double-checking champagne flutes, lecturing staff on posture, on eye contact, on the importance of absolute perfection. Alicia kept her head down, polishing the glass doors until she could see her reflection staring back. She told herself it was just another guest, another day. But when the black car pulled up outside and the guest stepped through the golden revolving doors, something in the air shifted. The manager, Mr. Crawford, straightened his tie twice in 30 seconds. His smile strained as he extended a hand, welcoming the man with rehearsed warmth. Guests in the lobby paused, sensing the gravity of this arrival. Everything seemed controlled until the man spoke. At first it was simple English, polite greetings exchanged. Then, seamlessly, he switched to Mandarin, fluid, flawless, commanding. The words cascaded like a river, confident and steady, leaving the manager frozen. Mr. Crawford's polished smile faltered. Panic flickered in his eyes. He nodded stiffly, not understanding a single word, praying the guest would switch back. But he didn't. Instead, the guest continued, his tone expectant, his eyes sharp, waiting for a response. Silence pressed against the gilded walls of the lobby. Staff froze, their confusion mirroring the manager's. Somewhere in the back, a maid carrying gloves paused, watching. Alicia. Her heart pounded. She understood every word. For years, her knowledge had been her private world. But now, in the middle of the lobby with the entire hierarchy of the hotel watching, the question wasn't just whether she would speak. The question was, what would happen if she did? The lobby, usually filled with a polite murmur of conversation and the gentle clinking of glasses, had turned into a vacuum of silence. Every eye was on Mr. Crawford, the manager. His confident facade, the one he wore like armor, had cracked. Beads of sweat gathered along his hairline, his practiced smile twitching as he tried to cobble together an answer. But none came. The Mandarin continued to flow from the millionaire's lips, measured, articulate, impossible to ignore. He gestured to the room around him, clearly asking questions, perhaps about his reservation or the accommodations. The more he spoke, the deeper Crawford's panic became. The staff shuffled nervously. Some whispered behind their hands, others avoided eye contact altogether, as though the language barrier itself was contagious. The weight of embarrassment pressed heavy on the hotel's pristine marble floor. And in the corner, unnoticed at first, Alicia froze. Her mop leaned against the wall, her yellow cleaning gloves clutched tightly in one hand. She understood every syllable. He was asking about the suite he had booked, wondering why certain promised amenities weren't ready, why the arrangements seemed off. His tone was calm but firm, the kind of tone that carried power. Alicia's pulse raced. She could help. She wanted to help. But maids weren't supposed to intervene. She had seen it before. Co-workers reprimanded, even fired, for speaking out of turn in front of VIP guests. In the hotel's rigid hierarchy, she didn't belong in the conversation. Her mind wrestled with the choice. Stay silent and watch her manager drown in humiliation, or step forward and risk everything she had worked to keep, the job, the paycheck, the stability her family relied on. Across the lobby, Crawford fumbled, pulling out his phone as though an app might magically translate the flood of Mandarin. His hands trembled slightly as he tapped at the screen. Guests standing nearby exchanged looks, some amused, others judgmental. Phones appeared discreetly angled, recording the scene. Within hours, it could end up on social media. Luxury hotel exposed. Staff can't communicate with VIP guest. The millionaire's eyes narrowed, his words sharper now, demanding clarity. The moment stretched like an elastic band, seconds from snapping. And then, almost without realizing it, Alicia's lips parted. The words slipped out, clear, fluent Mandarin cutting through the silence like glass shattering on marble. The entire lobby seemed to stop breathing. Her voice carried steady, confident, but her hands trembled inside her gloves. She repeated his questions back, answered them with precision, explained that the hotel had mistakenly overlooked certain details, but that arrangements would be corrected immediately. She spoke as though she belonged at the front desk, not in the shadows with a mop bucket. The millionaire blinked, surprised, and then his stern expression softened. His lips curved into the faintest smile, as though he had discovered an unexpected treasure in an unlikely place. He responded warmly, engaging her directly, ignoring the manager altogether. Gasps rippled through the staff. Guests craned their necks for a better view. Crawford's face turned crimson, his authority dissolving before everyone's eyes. Still, Alicia continued, her voice unwavering now. Years of study poured out of her effortlessly, the cadence, the tones, the nuance. It was as though the countless hours spent in solitude had been preparing her for this very moment. But beneath the awe, tension simmered. Crawford's jaw clenched, his fists tightening at his sides. This wasn't just about language anymore. It was about control. A maid had stepped out of her place, broken the unspoken rules, and humiliated him in front of the most important guest the hotel had ever seen. When Alicia finished translating, the millionaire chuckled softly, visibly pleased. He looked at her directly, thanked her in Mandarin, and even complimented her accent. The power dynamic in the room had shifted entirely. The invisible maid had become the center of attention, but that shift came with consequences. Crawford's eyes burned holes into her back as she bowed politely and stepped away. The murmurs grew louder. Phones kept recording. Somewhere in the distance, the concierge pretended to busy himself, while servers whispered that they had never seen anything like it. Alicia knew she had just crossed a line she could never uncross. She had revealed herself. The question now wasn't whether the millionaire had noticed. He had, and so had everyone else. The question was, what would Crawford do about it? And how would her life, carefully balanced between invisibility and survival, change after this one act of courage? The silence after Alicia's last words in Mandarin felt heavier than any sound. For a heartbeat, the entire lobby seemed suspended in time. The glittering chandeliers above, the polished marble beneath, even the guests caught mid-breath. And then, like a ripple in water, the reactions began. The millionaire laughed warmly, the kind of laugh that carried approval. He clasped his hands together and spoke again in Mandarin, thanking Alicia not only for her fluency, but for her composure. He said she had shown him more professionalism in those few minutes than the manager had in their entire exchange. Gasps filled the lobby. Guests whispered louder, phones tilted higher, some clapped softly, others exchanged knowing looks. The spectacle was no longer about a language barrier. It was about a hierarchy crumbling in real time. Mr. Crawford, the manager, looked as though the ground had betrayed him. His smile was gone, replaced by a twisted grimace that barely masked his fury. His eyes darted between the millionaire, the guests, and Alicia, searching for a way to regain control. But the more he floundered, the more invisible he became. Finally, he stepped forward, his voice trembling but sharp. "Alicia," he hissed, his words a whisper meant for her but loud enough to be heard. "What do you think you're doing? Get back to your station, now." But the millionaire's gaze snapped to Crawford, cold and unyielding. He switched briefly to English, his tone cutting like a blade. "Why would you silence the only one here capable of helping me?" The words echoed louder than any shout. Crawford paled. His lips moved, but no sound came. The authority he once wielded so easily now slipped from his fingers like sand. Alicia, her heart hammering, wanted to shrink back into the shadows. Years of conditioning told her she had overstepped, that punishment was inevitable. Yet another part of her, newly awakened, refused to bow. She had spoken the truth, done the right thing, and the world had seen it. There was no hiding anymore. The millionaire turned back to her, this time speaking slowly, deliberately in Mandarin. His tone was gentle, his smile reassuring. He asked about her background, how she had learned the language so perfectly. Cameras captured every moment, the maid, her gloves still tucked in her hand, standing tall in the center of a storm she had never expected to face. She explained quietly but confidently, years of study, practice, and a love for cultures that no one ever cared to ask her about. It wasn't just language to her. It was a part of who she was, a piece of herself she had been forced to keep hidden while scrubbing floors and changing sheets. The millionaire nodded, visibly impressed. And then, he turned once more to Crawford, his expression hardening. His words, though spoken in English this time, carried the weight of judgment. You overlooked her, you disrespected me, and in your arrogance, you nearly cost your hotel its reputation. Tell me, Mr. Crawford, what is a manager worth if he cannot recognize talent standing right in front of him? The question cut deeper than a blade. Gasps filled the air again, sharper this time, like an audience reacting to a brutal twist in a play. Crawford's hands shook as he stammered for an answer. But the millionaire didn't wait. Instead, he gestured to Alicia. From this moment, I will only deal with her. She has earned my respect. Crawford's face burned red, his authority collapsing in full view of the world. His attempt to bark orders fell flat, drowned out by the millionaire's presence and the undeniable truth of the moment. Alicia stood rooted to the spot, her chest tight, her throat dry. This was the moment her life tilted, the second she could never return to the shadows. The millionaire's words had made it official. She was no longer invisible. And yet the fear lingered. For every cheer there was a risk. For every clap, a consequence. She could feel Crawford's glare stabbing at her back, promising retribution. But for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid to meet it. The climax had arrived. Not just in the lobby, but in her life. The maid had spoken, the manager had crumbled, and the millionaire had chosen sides. The only question left was what would happen when the dust settled. The lobby was still buzzing, a whirlwind of whispers, applause, and phone screens raised high. Yet for Alicia, time moved differently. She stood there, gloves still in her hand, her chest rising and falling in uneven breaths. For years she had been background noise, a nameless shadow in a world that never paused to see her. But now the spotlight was blinding. The millionaire placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. A gesture so simple, yet so profound, it nearly brought her to tears. He spoke to her again in Mandarin, words laced with gratitude. He explained that her intervention had not just saved his dignity, but had honored his culture in a way he hadn't expected from anyone here. Alicia blinked rapidly, fighting the tears that threatened to fall. Gratitude, respect. These were not things she often encountered in her uniform. She bowed her head slightly, not out of servitude, but out of respect, an acknowledgement between equals. The guests in the lobby were not silent anymore. Their voices grew louder, weaving into a chorus of reactions. Some spoke in awe of Alicia's skill, marveling at how effortlessly she had navigated a language most assumed was beyond her reach. Others whispered about Crawford, their tones laced with disdain. Phones buzzed, notifications pinged. What had started as a confrontation in one hotel lobby was now spilling into the wider world. And Crawford knew it. His jaw clenched, his hands trembling at his sides. He tried to assert himself one last time, raising his voice to demand silence, to insist that the hotel's order be restored. But no one listened. Not the guests, not the staff, not even the security guards hovering at the edges. Authority had shifted. Crawford was no longer the center of this story. Alicia was. For Alicia, it was a strange mixture of fear and empowerment. Fear because she knew men like Crawford. Humiliation burned them, and humiliation often bred cruelty. But empowerment because for the first time, she was not standing alone. The millionaire's presence, the witnesses, the undeniable truth of the moment, it all gave her a shield stronger than any uniform she had ever worn. The millionaire requested to meet with the hotel's ownership immediately. His words carried weight, sharper than any reprimand Crawford could muster. The staff scrambled to comply. Within the hour, the owners arrived, their expressions tight as they surveyed the situation. It didn't take long for them to understand. Videos were already trending online, hashtags forming, the hotel's name flashing across screens. What could have been a private humiliation had exploded into a public relations storm. In front of everyone, the millionaire made his position clear. He praised Alicia, not just for her language skills, but for her courage. He explained that in her, he had seen the professionalism, respect, and competence the hotel claimed to uphold, but had failed to embody through its manager. His voice echoed with authority as he turned to Crawford, demanding accountability. The owners exchanged uneasy glances, their silence more damning than any defense. Finally, one of them spoke, announcing that an internal review would begin immediately, and that Mr. Crawford would be suspended pending investigation. Crawford's face drained of color. His protests fell flat, ignored by everyone around him. His once commanding voice now sounded like a desperate whisper in a storm too loud to control. Alicia stood in shock, her mind reeling. The man who had ruled over her with sharp words and cold eyes was unraveling in front of her. Yet she felt no triumph, only a quiet sense of justice. This wasn't about revenge. It was about dignity, hers, and countless others who wore uniforms like hers. In the days that followed, the story spread like wildfire. Clips of Alicia speaking Mandarin with flawless ease went viral. Headlines praised her intelligence and grace, contrasting them against the arrogance of her manager. For once, her name was not hidden. It was celebrated. But fame was not what mattered to her. What mattered was the shift she felt in the air. Guests who once walked past her without a glance now greeted her warmly. Colleagues whispered apologies for not seeing her sooner, for not recognizing the brilliance she had kept tucked away. The owners offered her opportunities, promising training, advancement, and recognition. And yet Alicia remained humble. She did not seek to climb ladders or bask in the light. She sought only fairness, the simple dignity of being seen as human, not invisible. The millionaire stayed in contact, offering mentorship and even scholarships if she wished to pursue further education. He told her that the world needed voices like hers, not just in hotels, but in boardrooms, classrooms, and beyond. His faith in her was a mirror she had never dared look into. One evening, as she sat alone in the staff break room, Alicia replayed the moment in her mind, the chandeliers above, the marble floor beneath, the crowd that had gasped when she spoke. For so long she had carried her knowledge like a secret burden, hidden behind mop buckets and linen carts. But in that single moment, when she chose courage over silence, everything had changed. She realized something profound. It wasn't just about her. Her story was a reflection of countless others who had been overlooked, underestimated, dismissed because of the color of their skin or the uniform they wore. How many maids, janitors, cashiers, and workers carried hidden brilliance the world never cared to see? How many voices were silenced before they ever spoke? Her courage had cracked open a door. The question was whether the world would keep it open, and so the impact of that day lived on, not just in Alicia's life, but in the minds of those who had witnessed it. Guests left the hotel with a new awareness. Viewers online debated what it meant, sharing stories of their own encounters with prejudice and hidden talent. The hotel, forced to confront its own failings, implemented changes, small steps toward fairness that rippled outward. Alicia knew the fight wasn't over. Racism, arrogance, injustice, they didn't vanish in a single moment. But she also knew something else. Courage was contagious. If one maid could stand up and be heard, then perhaps others could too. Her story became more than a scandal or a viral clip. It became a reminder, a challenge, a mirror held up to society. And though Alicia never sought the spotlight, she understood its power. Because at the end of it all, this wasn't about a millionaire's mandarin or a manager's downfall. It was about the truth hiding in plain sight. That brilliance knows no uniform, no skin color, no rank. And perhaps the most important question of all lingered in the minds of everyone who watched. How many more Alicias are waiting unseen, unheard, while the world looks the other way?